I mean, the Hearthstone Esports kind of is weird right now, right? It's kind of like a hot topic in the Hearthstone community because they switched everything over to YouTube, and the big tournaments now have less than 5,000 viewers.
What's up, party people, and welcome to another episode of Esports and Content Creators. This week is episode number 5. I'm your host, and my name is Chillrogg. If this is your first time here, Esports and Content Creators is a show about the people behind the gaming industry. Each week, we interview a creator or esports professional and discuss with them what inspired them to get started, where they are in their career now, and their vision for the future of gaming. As always, I am joined by my co-host, Sidkitten. Sidkitten, what's up?
Hey guys, it's me, Sidkitten. Thanks for listening to the podcast.
Yeah. So this week we are really lucky to be joined by DracoCatt. DracoCatt is a massive presence in the Hearthstone community. He is the host of a popular Hearthstone podcast called MetaBreakers. He's a large Twitch streamer in the Hearthstone space, and he has the most Demon Hunter ranked wins of all time, which is insane. And he's a former member, really awesomely, he's a former member of the music band called Cabaret Runway. DracoCatt, welcome to the show. Really nice to have you, man.
Hey, thank you guys so much for having me. I've wanted to do something like this for a while, so I'm really excited to be a part of this. So thank you guys.
Yeah, for sure.
So we'll kind of get right into it. And this is something that we were debating for a while yesterday, actually, when we were preparing for the show. So is it DracoCatt or DracoCatt? What's the proper pronunciation?
There's actually more of a complex answer to that. So I came up with the name basically from the term like Draco or Draco that relates to dragons, you know, like draconic. So I would say Draco. I call it DracoCatt, but one of my best friends refers to me as DracoCatt, and he's a pretty popular streamer, and he just constantly calls me DracoCatt, and I never correct him. But I've even had the conversation with him before where I'm like, hey man, you're actually pronouncing it wrong. And he was like, okay, understood, Draco.
That's brilliant. So he's like perpetuating it to the masses, and there's no going back now.
Yeah, it honestly doesn't bother me though. If anyone calls me DracoCatt or DracoCatt, it's whatever, you know. It's the same name, I guess. I guess it's just the pronunciation of the A that changes. So, but I say DracoCatt. So.
Okay, gotcha. So you gave us a little bit of insight into where the name came from. So is that like, where did that inspiration even come from? Like the whole like dragon thing, like why dragons?
Well, I guess when I was designing things around my old band, it was, you know, like a spooky emo band. So everything had to be serious and edgy. And
that's
awesome. Since I was joining the Twitch sphere, I just kind of decided I want things to be the way I like it aesthetically, which I want like cartoons, animated stuff. And I was just kind of thinking, what do I like? I like dragons and I like cats. I have a cat named Khaleesi, who's also inspired from Game of Thrones. So
amazing.
I figured DragonCatt didn't really have. It didn't sound clever. It didn't sound as cool as I wanted it to. But DracoCatt. Excuse me. Now I'm saying it wrong. I just figured it was like the catchy approach to what I wanted to do. So, yeah, I just came up with it to design around it. Weird, but yeah.
No, it's very cool. That makes sense. So how did you first get into gaming? How did that all start?
I guess the normal way 90s kids get into gaming, right? Your parents have an NES or something when you're growing up, so you kind of learn how to play. Well, my parents got me into playing Mario when I was like 4, so
that's awesome.
I always really loved video games. Getting an N64 was like the most exciting moment of my child life.
Favorite N64 game?
Oh my god, it's a hard decision, man.
It's tough.
The first game that I ever had to be like pried away from the screen from my parents was probably Pokemon Snap.
Great game. So addicting. That was like years 10 through 12 for me, over and over, so much.
I think it was being obsessed with Pokemon and then seeing everything in 3D that just like, I don't even know if the game was really that stimulating, but I think it was like seeing Gyarados like come out of a waterfall. That was just kind of like
That was a lot in 98 or whatever it was, 98, 99.
Good times.
Yeah, that's a big step. That's cool.
Oh, man.
So what other games did you play before you got into Hearthstone?
I guess my favorite games of all time are always kind of Nintendo oriented. Like Zelda was my first game that I was like, this is the best game ever. Like Ocarina of Time, to be specific. And then Kingdom Hearts was the first game I started having dreams about.
Wow.
So that's another, breaching of a wall right there, where I would go to bed and like have dreams that involved Kairi and Riku. That was a little bit much. So that game was really important to me. And the first game I ever played professionally was Super Smash. But I played not the cool one. I played Brawl. Okay. So it was after the Melee phase when I got into playing in tournaments and stuff. But that was my first experience playing professional video games, was doing Smash Brothers Brawl. Yeah.
That's so cool. I didn't know that about you at all, that you had a serious professional endeavor before Hearthstone. What were you like doing LAN tournaments and like doing that kind of stuff and like going?
Yeah. It was when I was in college. So I didn't have a job at my school really, but I had a lot of practice with Smash Brothers because everyone who's like, almost every guy I knew in college was like, I'm good at Smash. And I'd be like, oh yeah?
Everybody in college, yeah. All of them.
So yeah, I basically got to play against like 50 people a week all the time. And that helped me, keep really fresh at the game. And then I would travel on the weekends, and sometimes I would, call on for classes and go and drive like 3 hours to do a Smash tournament in West Virginia or something. And
That's awesome.
Yeah, but it was a fun way to make side money. But yeah, I played Diddy Kong. And there is this thing that existed called banana locking. Are any of you two familiar?
I don't think so.
Okay. So Diddy Kong can like spawn a banana out of his back, and then you can throw it at your opponent, right? Mm-hmm. And if you kind of memorize all of the different weights and how fast the characters recover, you can just continuously throw at the bananas at the other opponent character, and they can't do anything.
Oh my God, that sounds so toxic.
It's really toxic, but they have to realize, but it's also very skill based, because if you're playing against like Bowser or something, you have to know the interval to throw the bananas at the right speed so that they can't recover. Where if you're playing against like a lighter character like Peach or something, you have to throw them at longer intervals to make it so they can't get up and recover. So you have to memorize each character's weight class and then get really comfortable at the time intervals spacing. So it was toxic, but it was also hard.
I love that though. Yeah. You really have to get into like the weeds of the game, because I know like for some of like shooter games, there's some targets that have like a wider like radius or whatever for like shooting them. So if they're like a larger character, like obviously you have a little more range there, but if they're like a skinnier character, they're harder to hit, and like a lot of people choose them. But yeah, that makes sense.
Going from there, you played Super Smash Bros. Brawl. You had this pretty like nice introductory esports career, and then how'd you get into Hearthstone? Like, what was the next step?
It was honestly just an accident. To be real, it wasn't some like well thought out plan. I got into Hearthstone as like just like a noob who played on a phone, and I did that for years, and I was really bad. I don't know if I was bad. I didn't really know what was going on, but I played since the game like kind of came out, and didn't really dive into what everyone else was doing in the game, and just kind of like built pre-stacks and tried to do my own thing for years.
That's fun though.
Yeah. And eventually I discovered that the internet had like all of this Hearthstone knowledge, and it was this huge fleshed out thing. And then I was like, oh man, I used to be good at video games. I could probably be good at this one too if I actually tried. I just kind of bit into it really seriously at one point, and it all happened kind of fast. I think it was kind of a combination of realizing I can't do like fighting games professionally anymore, just because like I know I'm not old, right? I'm 28, but competing against kids that are like 15 and 19 with reaction-based games. I can't do that. They're gonna beat me.
They have more time too. They play 12 hours a day. They have better reflexes. It's stacked against you. Yeah.
And that's kind of sad to realize. You're like, oh man, I'm too old to do to play video games professionally anymore. And then I was like, I could play a strategy game. And then I was like, I already love Hearthstone. And then eventually I was like, I'm gonna just figure this out because I already like this game, and I have confidence that I'd be able to do it at a high level.
So when you made that first step, you jumped into the internet world of Hearthstone, you understood this landscape. Have you started competing at all or doing anything? I know you're very high on ladder.
Yeah, I did do a Hearthstone tournament in Pennsylvania one time, and I won, and that was super exciting. I have done Masters qualifiers and Open Cups and stuff, and I did qualify for a Masters tour at one point.
Wow.
It was before the COVID situation, and I was getting married. I was supposed to get married this year in 2020, right? But that didn't happen. So I said, I'm not going to go to the Masters tour because I need the vacation time to go on my honeymoon. Little did I know that this global pandemic would happen, and then I would have had a copious amount of vacation time. So glad I passed up on that opportunity. But it'll happen again, right? It'll happen again.
Yeah, and I mean, there's no way to predict this whole situation. So, are you yourself a fan of Hearthstone Esports, or are you not really that plugged in?
Oh, I would say I'm a fan. I would say yes, I'm a fan. I mean, the Hearthstone Esports kind of is weird right now, right? It's kind of like a hot topic in the Hearthstone community because they switched everything over to YouTube, and the big tournaments now have less than 5,000 viewers commonly now. But in my household, we watch it all on YouTube still. Like my fiance, myself, whenever there's, Grandmaster tournaments coming on, we just kind of play it in the background like people do with normal sports.
Yeah.
And we like it. Yeah. And it's interesting too, though, because I sometimes play against the players that are in, the Grandmaster tournaments and everything. So it adds a little bit more relevance around the household when I could be like, hey, I was playing against Yarla and he did this to me and this to me. And then my fiance, I'd be like, well, you shouldn't feel bad about that because we already know he's the best, It's just kind of,
that's cool.
It's funny when you can carry the conversations about the professional sports players as to oh, I played this game against this guy earlier today and it was ridiculous,
That's really cool. Do you have any opinions on that? I know if you might not want to talk about it, so that's totally fine. But how?
No,
Blizzard...
I'm fine to talk about it. My opinions about it are basically from the consumer perspective, the move is not awesome. Because Hearthstone viewers were on Twitch, not on YouTube. So whatever makes it more difficult for people to consume that media, I don't think that's great. But obviously, so just for anyone listening to this, to add a little bit of context as to why this happened, Activision and Blizzard sold, their esport leagues to YouTube instead over Twitch. They had a deal, and primarily it was for the Overwatch League and Call of Duty. But then they added in Hearthstone as kind of your Happy Meal prize at the end of it. They're and you can have Hearthstone. And then, but that's just kind of sad for the people that love the game,
Blizzard's not even saying, guys, we got 100 or some insane amount of money for this. We had to do it. They're just we just threw it.
It sucks when you're the game that you play all the time is just kind of the side factor to a giant, big marketing deal. But
yeah, I'm a Heroes of the Storm fan, so I know what you mean.
Oh, you're a Heroes of the Storm fan, so you probably feel.
I feel it.
Yeah.
So it's tough.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on. So going to your career a little bit more, you got your record of being a top 25 player. I think that's in North America. Do I have that right?
That was actually on EU, but I play in North America, and I have gotten that high in North America before too. So it's a viable question.
Is esports or is Hearthstone like other games where EU is better, or is it contested more?
let me make sure I understand that question. So you're asking, like, is it better than other games or contested more?
No, like would top 25 EU be more impressive than top 25 NA in Hearthstone? Because the EU population
to most
is better.
people, yeah, it's actually harder because the EU population has like 10, like generally EU will have around like 20,000 legend players by the end of the month, and America will have like 11.
Okay.
So,
See,
Wow.
yeah, I was kind of curious because in most games that I follow, EU is just better than NA for whatever reason. So I was just kind of seeing like, is that the same in Hearthstone or so it is?
yeah, I honestly just play both of them because it's more to do for the stream. You know, it's like, okay, we got here on this one, now let's go here on this one, and it helps to tilt.
That's cool.
To be like, oh, wow, I just lost like a whole bunch of games on America. Let's just go over to EU and see what they're playing. And sometimes switching and playing against different players just kind of like loosens the mind and refreshes the situation, and
Definitely.
it helps me not get like salty.
I didn't think about that, but in Hearthstone, unlike pretty much every other game, ping doesn't matter, right? Like, what are you gonna put the card down slower? That doesn't matter. Or
I mean, it doesn't matter, but sometimes the game can be a little glitchy, but
okay, I see.
in most contexts, like you're saying though, like in comparison to like a first person shooter game, no, it doesn't really matter.
That's
You can
nice.
play like at a high level on all of them.
Yeah. Have you considered going to South Korea or anywhere else, or NA and EU is enough?
You know, it is kind of funny. I have my. Let me just find a quick way to say this. I work for an internet service provider, so I have a router that's like locked down to specifically where it wants me to connect to. I do it to kind of keep like everyone's information private while I'm working from home, and connecting to Korea servers to play Hearthstone kind of interferes with some of the rules I set up for like my security in my home. But I have done it for periods of time, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like just playing like America and Europe is fine. You know, I don't need to play. Yeah, I don't need to play all three or all four, like China, Asia, Korea. You know, like it's all good. You know, I'm fine with two.
That's cool.
So, do you have any advice for players who want to become better, or even newbies, or any like hot tips?
Yeah, watch streamers.
Specifically,
Twitch.tv/DracoCatt.
Yeah, I'm not plugging myself.
No, you're good to plug. Don't worry.
But watch streamers. It honestly like that's how I got better. It was, you know, Hearthstone's different than other games where you can just get better from understanding the way to think about it. Like changing your perception of how to react while you're playing a game can make you play like 10 times better. So watch people play, understand how they think, and if you start realizing you make all the same choices that the person you watch all the time makes, then you're probably going to win a whole lot more. So
nice. And would you have any advice for specifically demon hunters?
Specifically demon hunters. That's a good question. Like, I mean, I do like coaching on Demon Hunter for like hours long. So it's like, what is the takeaway advice that I would give to people about Demon Hunter? Yeah, don't hit minions. Hit their face.
That's fun.
Yes, don't use your weapons to hit other minions on the board. Just kill your opponent.
Wow. So I used to play Hearthstone like when it first came out the first couple years. Is Demon Hunter, I didn't play Demon Hunter yet. Is it more like Face Hunter was, or is it a little different flavor?
It's kind of a different entity, right? So it has like, so Demon Hunter's special mechanic is Outcast, right? Are you familiar with this, Chillrogg?
No, I haven't. It's been a few years.
It's okay. So Outcast means the cards have a special effect when they're held in the left or held in the right of your hand. So basically the whole game of Demon Hunter is manipulating, like playing a card just because you have to get the other one outcasted for the next turn. Okay. You know, so sometimes you're thinking about like the whole position of your hand the entire game. But the cards, effect-wise, are kind of similar to Hunter. They're a little bit less tempo-centric, but a lot more of the cards go face and you can heal. So,
okay.
And a lot of them also are kind of rogue like in regards to some of them being like really cheap and having effects when they combo with other things. So it's kind of like rogue and hunter. And
like Zulok kind of, or maybe
it is kind of similar to Zoo in the context that you draw really fast. Because a lot of Demon Hunter gets draw as well. So it'll be like, there's like 1 mana cards that are like 1/1 draw a card, where you can just keep cycling cards in your hand.
yeah.
And a lot of them have outcast effects. So if it's like on the left of your hand, then you'll draw 3 cards for 2. So you like manipulate your hand to keep drawing a whole bunch. And yeah, it's tempo centric.
It sounds
so.
fun. Yeah, maybe I
it
should
is
try
fun.
This. Yeah. So Demon Hunters are your thing. You're like the Demon Hunter expert. What did you do in Hearthstone before Demon Hunters were out?
I played Rogue and Hunter.
Oh, perfect. Wow.
When Demon Hunter was announced, I was just like, this is gonna be perfect for me because it's kind of like reminds me of the 2 things I already love.
Mm-hmm. So how do you feel? Sorry, how do you feel about like physical card games? Like, do you play Uno around the house, or are you just like, give me the like video game version of Uno? I know they have them all like online now, but like, how do you feel about like just old school like paper like cards?
I love card games. Now I was never super professional at them. Like I know a lot of the people I hang out with and play video games with now are like, yeah, I was a former Yu-Gi-Oh champ, or I was a Magic the Gathering pro. Like everyone I talk to has this as their, as their background. I didn't have that. I did play the games, but I wasn't, as intense into them as my friends and peers are that play Hearthstone. But I love it, behind me, there's like a whole bunch of card games on the ground right now and stuff. And that's like something we love board games, card games, yeah, we're into it. I like it. But I didn't do it professionally as when I was younger. If that makes sense.
Your background is really cool. Is that like a physical, like Hearthstone, like board or behind it?
This thing right here?
Yeah, it looks like the intro screen when you go in there and it's like, well,
yeah.
blah, blah, blah.
It isn't a physical Hearthstone board. It's actually a set of pins. And if you open it up, there's a whole bunch of Hearthstone pins on the inside that look like card backs from the game.
That's so cool. Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like being a streamer, having a nice like nerd shelf behind you is practically a staple in the industry at this point, right? Like you got to have the coolest nerdy stuff behind you just so that if people want to not look at you while you're talking and try and understand what those things are in the background, that's an option visually.
I agree. It's a really good shelf.
Good streamer tips.
Yes. Streamer tips. Get a good nerd shelf. I didn't have a nerd shelf before I was a streamer, but then I was like, oh man, these other people, they got this awesome memorabilia behind them, and I need to build a collection fast.
They're good discussion topics as well, something for your chat to like bring up, which is always nice.
Yeah. It honestly, I've had people ask me like what something is on the shelf, like in the middle of a game before, and then I've answered them, like grabbed it and showed it to the camera, and then they've like gifted like 1 million subs out because I actually responded to them. That's not the point. But like at the same time, that's something to do. Like sometimes I'm just kind of bored when I'm talking and entertaining. So when someone's like, "What's that?" I'm like, "Great question. Let's dig into this."
So speaking of interesting topics, I'm sure this is something you get a lot, but we need to know more about Cabaret Runway. So you touched on it a little bit when we started the podcast, but what type of music did your band play?
Oh my God, that is the hardest question. Even when I was in the band, I couldn't answer that question. What would I say? People said it sounded like a combination of like Panic at the Disco and Coheed and Cambria.
That sounds awesome.
That was kind of like, I mean, in reality, like I sang a little bit, like I sound a little bit similar to Brendan Urie, I would say. Like, I mean, I don't think I sound as good as Brennan Urie. Like I'm not saying that. Okay. So for anyone who would write something in the comments like, yo, that is ballsy. I'm not saying I'm as good as Brennan Urie. But people said it sounded like Old Panic very frequently. And then people also said the guitar sounded like Coheed. So there you go.
And where is this music like still available? Like where can we hear it?
Yeah. If you just Google Cabaret Runaway, you'll see like a picture of like 19-year-old me with a hat on. That's, it looks very like edgy. And I sometimes it makes me cringe, but whatever. I was younger. It's okay.
And so what did you play? Or were you the singer? What was your role?
Yeah. I was the singer. I wasn't the only songwriter. I would say I wrote probably about 60 to 70% of everything though. My friend who was like my friend who was the lead guitar player. We were the only two members of the band that stayed around like for the whole 5 years. And when we got our record deal, it only had two names on it, mine and his. So we wrote all the music. And whether that was like drums, guitar, bass, lyrics, the melodies, singing and stuff, that was just all us. So yeah, I kind of play all of it, but when I would go on stage, I would just sing,
Okay. Yeah.
Because that was more, I guess I was able to sing better because I wasn't playing. And I was also able to do the show better because I wasn't doing multiple things at once, because I could, interact with the audience more. I could kind of, do participation steps where I wanted to at certain points. I could, jump into the audience if I wanted to.
And how did that all start? Like, was it just you and a couple of friends that were like, oh, let's like get a band together? Or like, what was that like?
Well, I spent my like whole childhood life thinking I was going to be a rock star. So the whole video games thing that's happening now is just completely unexpected and a crazy side pivot of life. And and that's the way it is, right? You always end up doing something you had no idea. But I went to college for music, and I was in a band, and it was a pop punk band. And they kicked me out of the band because we had two singers, and the other guy was a guitar player singer, and I was just the singer at the time, even though I was writing music and stuff too. But I guess they didn't like how like sceney I was about like music at the time, like because I was. It doesn't matter why the band broke up, but they kicked me out, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do my own thing. I'm gonna make my own band. It'll be like spooky pop punk. And I'll ask my friend who only wants to play spooky music to write the music with me. And that's how it started. So it was more like oh yeah, you don't need me? Well, I can do it on my own. Peace.
Yeah, that sounds like when you get kicked from a dungeon in like WoW or something. I'm just like, ugh. It like makes me so like mad but like sad at the same time. And I'm just like, Arr. But anyway.
It's right. It's like getting kicked out of a dungeon in WoW and then going back and soloing it.
Yes.
Or just duoing it. Right. That's it.
So have you ever considered streaming music to your stream?
Like playing music, like doing music streams?
Yeah.
I've considered like grabbing a guitar and putting it in like the background and then doing that while I'm playing, to a degree. Music streamers, I feel like that's like the hardest thing ever to do. Because there's two ways in my mind that it works out, right? One way that involves a ton of prep, where it's like, I'm going to play this song into this song. I'm going to do where you make like a set list every day. And then I feel like if you're doing that, then you have to figure out the DMCA situation with that. And that also sounds really sore. And then the other thing that I could think about that'd be a fun, successful music stream would be like a production stream. Like if I just like had Pro Tools up and I was like editing bands' music while like, cool. Yeah. it'd be like, okay, I'm editing this metal band's music. I'm going to like fix this guy's voice. I'm going to edit this. I'm going to make this guitar on time, like I feel like that would be a great way to do a music stream as well. But I also feel like I would need steady work to do that consistently every day. Like I would need to have, like a whole bunch of bands that paid me to like, mix their music or something or edit their stuff. And then I would also probably need to
it's like start a whole business.
I would have to start a whole business around the stream idea.
Yeah.
There is some guy who does this idea and this concept, and he's like really good friends with Harris Heller in Alpha Gaming.
Oh, cool.
And he does like the rock production stuff like the entire time he streams. But I also find that isn't as interesting to people as just like a video game they love, which is sad, I guess, to think like, okay, watching someone do this complicated, amazing thing is less entertaining than watching someone like speed run through Mario 64. But that's true.
That's the human brain. That's what we got.
Yeah. Like I'd probably like I don't want to watch someone edit music. I want to watch someone play Hearthstone perfectly.
Yeah.
I have watched those streams a little bit, but it's always like popping in being like, oh, that's really cool. But after 15 minutes, I'm like, it's too complicated. Like I don't fully understand.
Yeah, I think being a visual entertainer or like a streamer is a lot about just being honest and real about like what people want to see and what people like and what actually entertains people. And I feel like from the music streaming perspective isn't actually the gold mine. To be real, I feel like people's attention spans aren't really seeking music streaming, but that might be my opinion, but other people could think otherly. Yeah.
So you've thought about it. It seems like a whole lot though, to do the whole like stream, play some music on stream or whatever. But I guess like just in music in general, is there any desire to like go back to maybe doing music full time?
It's so much work, and there's so many steps involved with it that the venture is not only is it time consuming, but it like costs a lot of money and there's a lot of people involved with it. To be like, if I just wanted to make one song and then have it recorded, mastered, and then a music video built around it for like a promotional perspective, that would take probably like 3 or 4 months as a project to just make a one song, come into fruition. And I think I want to do that eventually, again, but I feel like eventually I'll make the pivot to doing, full-time content creation, and that'll be awesome. And in these moments, if things are, going really well, hopefully I can use some of the income to that to do more exciting ventures where it's like, I will make a song about a video game and I will get it highly produced and mastered and I'll make it really, really good. And then make a music video that's absolutely hilarious. And then, release this like competitive music awesomeness into the YouTube sphere of gaming or something. And I do want to do that kind of stuff. Obviously, to make, projects that daring, it just, I feel like I need to probably grow to a specific level to like where the investing of doing something like that would actually hit the amount of audience that would make it worthwhile,
Yeah, like build up enough of an audience to like push you in the algorithm to like whatever, go really high.
Right. Like the goal would be like if we make a video and we make music to do something that we would get it fairly viral to a degree.
Like 1,000 views, like would be, it's not really, it's got to get like serious traction. That makes sense.
It would need to serve its point from whatever that point may be. And it just requires a lot of creativity too, I mean, like what could you think of that would be like a great music video idea to be done in like a specific style that like the gaming and the Twitch sphere would just eat up? Because if you have an idea, just like let me know.
Just blur it out. Like Hearthstone Tavern, like in a Hearthstone Tavern, something maybe.
And people have been doing that, right? Like we've seen they use like a green screen and they're like in like the World of Warcraft like land or wherever, and then they're like singing about like, I don't know, Azeroth or whatever. Like, I don't know. So good concept.
That would be cool.
Yeah. It's fun to think about. And I don't know. I pride myself on creativity to a degree. So I'm sure eventually I'm gonna come up with this idea that I'm like, you know what, we're gonna go through with this. We're gonna make the song. We're gonna write it. I'm gonna send it to someone to mix it, master it. We're gonna make a music video. It's gonna be sick. Eventually, it's gonna happen. That idea, it's not here yet. So we'll just wait.
That's cool. So MetaBreakers. MetaBreakers is an awesome Hearthstone podcast with you, with Warshak, and with D-Money. So I guess we had some questions about MetaBreakers. It's really great. If you guys haven't checked it out, you should go check it out. How did MetaBreakers get started?
D-Money is Dan. So if I say Dan, I'm talking about D-Money, and Warshak is Rob. So if I say Rob is Warshak. That started, I would say primarily, it was really pushed by D-Money, Dan, but it was kind of my idea. We both used to, I mean, obviously all of us start as small streamers, right? And back when D-Money and I were new and streaming to like, 5 to 15 people for, a long time, we became friends, which it's cool that everyone's grown so much now, where it like, when I tell people like, yo, we used to stream to like no one, people are like, really? I'm like, yeah. This was like, we've been friends since before anyone knew of us at all.
That's so cool. Yeah.
And back in that point, in this time period, we had pretty different approaches to the game. And I was like, yo, we should start a podcast. He was like, okay, yeah, we're going to do that. Let's make a podcast where we talk about Hearthstone, but we do it so quickly that it doesn't turn into this 3-hour long conversation like all the other ones are, where they dig into data and statistics, and there's just so much in it that you don't care about as like a listener most of the time. We were like, let's do a condensed 1 week one every week that's just an hour and just end it right at that. So that was the concept. Make a short and sweet Hearthstone podcast that we actually made entertaining. And Dan got really big pretty fast around this time period. And when he was growing super fast, he made friends with Warshak, and he was like, we need another person for the podcast. I think we should definitely have Warshak. I was like, I don't think this guy's going to even like want to do anything with me, man. Like I streamed to like 10 people. He's like famous on YouTube. Like what? Like Warshak is going to be down to do this, but he was, and then, it became the three of us, the Dan as he was exploding, Warshak, who was famous on YouTube, and then me, who was just like the little opinionated guy in the corner that no one knew. And we started it out like that in the beginning of 2020, and my success or pop off happened in this time period too, between the podcast existing to now. And I don't think it would have happened without the friendship I created between them and the whole entire thing. It is just a podcast from like a viewer perspective. But the fact is, every single Sunday, every single week, like in about like 30 minutes from now, I jump on a call with Warshak and D-Money, and we talk. And that's just become like a really important friendship in my life. Like I invited the two of those guys to my wedding. Yeah.
Was there, were they supposed to RSVP as Warshak and D-Money?
I think when I get their name tags made, I might actually do that now. So like when people are like seeing where they sit, and they'll be like, well, this one says Ryan Mullaney, but this one right here says Warshak. So it's pretty funny. Good idea.
That's great. Okay, so
I love it.
That sounds awesome. That sounds like a really fun podcast with like some good friends. Is there like a really memorable moment that you like look back on in the podcast that stands out?
One of my favorite times the podcast happened was there was like a big raid that happened during the middle of the podcast from a female streamer. I don't really know if like I want to like name drop her and stuff at this point, but and then we got into the brief Q&A thing, and then it turned into having nothing to do with Hearthstone. We just kept all of it and just kept going with it, where everyone was like, what was the weirdest date you went on in your life? And it just turned into this like huge, hilarious open forum thing of questions to the three of us just laughing at things. And that was pretty fun. I liked that one. It had nothing to do with Hearthstone, but we still just threw it out there and put it on YouTube and everything in the MetaBreakers podcast. So there's one of them out there that you can hear about, like all of our worst and cringiest dates and everything like that. It's all in there.
So you guys are still doing this podcast to this day. Is there like goals for the future of the podcast? Are there certain guests you want to have on, or collabs, or anything you're kind of looking forward to?
I would just love for it to become its own like big thing on YouTube. That'd be cool. I don't know. It grows at a pretty steady pace. So I mean, you always want things to grow faster, and you're like looking at YouTube and Twitch statistics. So I try not to look at how things are growing and constantly be like dissatisfied and want more. But naturally that's how we all feel, right?
Human nature. Yeah.
Yeah. Where like you look at like, you'll be like, oh wow, I only streamed to like 74 average viewers this stream. I need to get over 75 to apply for partner. This sucks. Like that's how like sometimes you'll like innately look at something, and in reality, you're like, oh, well, 2 months ago, I was streaming to like 47 average people. So why am I upset about streaming to 74? Is it's because you just want that instant gratification. And I don't know. It's hard to like pull yourself out of that, but all you can do is try.
Okay. So changing gears a little bit. So we mentioned a lot that you stream on Twitch a lot, that you're on Twitch playing Hearthstone. How did you first get started as a Twitch streamer?
I wanted to do it for a really long time. I think the person who probably inspired me and got me into the context thing I could do it was Dexter from Twitch, Dexter Gaming.
I've heard of him, I think. Yeah.
He was the first person I watched that I was like, this guy's actually cool. Like I would chill with this guy. Like I like this guy. And then I kind of realized I could do that. I was an entertainer from a music perspective. I do talk stuff like that. I would be great. And I kept thinking this in my head, but I didn't even have a PC at the time. So eventually I talked to my significant other about it, and I told her like, this is something I feel like I'd be good at. I really want to do. I play a lot of this game anyway. And eventually it was like, okay, let's make it happen. So I just like saved up a whole bunch of money, worked a whole bunch of overtime, built like my computer and my setup for it, and just kind of started going at it. And it was exciting, even though you don't see a lot of growth or change immediately from the start. Like I streamed to less than 10 people for over a year from the start right there. But I was really excited about it the whole time. Like whether or not I only had 9 people watching me, it was like, I have 9 people watching me play video games. That's way more than most people have in their living room. That's great.
Yeah.
And I'm doing what I love. Cool.
Did you start with Hearthstone?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you've been streaming Hearthstone the entire time? The
entire time, yeah. I mean, there's been other games that I've streamed like a little bit of, but I was good at Hearthstone when I started streaming. So I figured that was going to be my thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's probably a lot of people watching who are very interested in what you just said, because, there's a lot of people who stream to 1 or 2 people on Twitch, and it's so hard for them to get those numbers up. Is there anything you would say to those people who are grinding out there, who have 1 viewer and they've been doing it for a long time, and that kind of person?
The best thing you can do is network and join other people's communities, and be a part of other people's success, and reach out to them, share their ideas with them, and like become an asset to the people's communities that you care about. And then when you're trying to do something, that same community will support you in like a big way. Yeah, I think it's really a lot about like networking, and kind of establishing that relevance to a degree where, there's a lot of people streaming out there, and a lot of people, some people take it seriously to a degree and some people don't. And I don't think a lot of us actually realize that we subconsciously want to watch someone who does take it seriously. But we do. So realizing you're watching someone who's like the real deal or something versus like, oh, this guy's like good at a game and he streams like on Sundays and he's, you know, his microphone's really, really quiet. You know, it's hard to, I don't know. I'm tangenting. I apologize about that.
No, but you are right. Like they're all like kind of the relevant reasons, like why.
Yeah, like being like, okay, I care about my audio. I care about the way this looks. I care about the way I play. I care about starting at the exact same time all the time and making people feel like, you know, appreciated in chat. Like I take this seriously. This is something that I want to do. And I put forth the time, effort, and work into it. Is something that you don't really need to tell people, but they understand that when they see it, you know?
And you mentioned you built your own PC when you were starting out. Is that still the same setup you have right now, or has it evolved?
I didn't build my own PC. I work in tech, so I was like, you know what? I do not want to troubleshoot when I go home. I'm just gonna buy a pre-built. I'm gonna call it a day. But I could build a PC, but I didn't want to. I was feeling lazy. But my setup did evolve a lot over time. I have like a CyberPower PC that has like an 9700K in it and like a RTX 2080, and that's been fine since I got it. It's like nice stuff. But yeah, I had like a whole different set of peripherals, and luckily, you know, Corsair hooked me up like with like pretty much like a whole like redo of my rig with all these like lights and like keyboards, and they gave me like a mouse and stuff. It's been really nice ever since I started talking to them. You know, the other day, like I get things in the mail now from like companies like this that I don't even know what they are, but it's so exciting when you're like, I got a package from California. It says Corsair. I didn't order it. What is this? You know, and then you just like open it up and you're like, great, this is awesome. You know,
that's amazing.
But yeah, the setup's like just constantly evolving. I try to like, you know, and now I'm lucky enough, I'm blessed enough to you know, make a little bit of money off of doing this, and I have a wonderful job as well. So I try to use the support from people to make it a better experience for the people that my stream is a part of their life. So whether or not that's like, you know, I'm going to get the nicest microphone I can get because these people have to listen to my voice all the time, or just something along the lines of like, let me just get this commission to make an anime version of this Demon Hunter card because I know it'll look awesome. And then I can give it to people as like phone wallpapers and put it all, you know, I don't know. I spin all of the stuff into making it better for the people that support it instead of, you know, pinching off a lot of it for myself. But.
And what type of camera do you use? Is it because it looks really great quality, and I know that's always something that kind of sets people apart when they're streaming. So
it's a Logitech Brio. That's all it is.
Nice.
Okay.
But hopefully that's like my next thing that I like pretty about getting is like, you know, an actual DSLR camera.
Yeah.
I feel like that's always the most expensive upgrade to a stream, and it's been the one that's been like the last thing I've decided like to eventually do. I don't know if you guys use them.
The Shure I feel like was probably a nice cost too, though. The Shure and the cable,
microphone,
and the mixer,
yeah. Honestly, I think audio is probably the most important thing as a streamer. And I tell people this that are, you know, like part of my community, or they're smaller streamers and they're trying to make like, you know, an impact and grow. It's like if someone raids into you and they have to like turn you up to hear you or turn you down because it's like abrasive to whatever, they're usually going to just click out. Like if it doesn't just come on and it sounds like enjoyable from like a viewer perspective, and if people have to readjust their audio, they're probably going to leave. So whatever you got to do to make yourself consistent amongst like the people that you watch, the people that will support you and raid you, to make your audio fit in, that should be the goal, because people don't like to change their settings.
Yeah. Do you plan your content beforehand, or are you just kind of like, okay, we're going to go into this game and like see what happens, or like what's that like?
I do plan my content ahead of time, not as deep and as long as I could plan to do things. Like I think about like what deck I'm going to play. I carry a little bit of weight for Demon Hunter, to the point where I don't want to play something that everyone is already familiar with. I want to do something new and modern or relevant to a degree every time, right? And it's hard to have a new deck, a new approach, a new concept, for all 5 streams a week.
Yeah.
So I spend a lot of time like digging around on Twitter. Like I follow like a whole bunch of Chinese Hearthstone players. I can't even understand what they're saying. But if they post Demon Hunter decks and they're really good at the game that I have never seen, and a lot of times I just like grab this one thing that I took from this guy from Korea and I just throw it in there and spend like an hour practicing it, 2 hours practicing it before I stream, so that when I go live with this deck that no one's seen before, I'm doing it with the perspective of like playing well, and I know it, and it's like something new and fresh, but I'm doing it correctly so that people can learn.
Now I know there's like a lot of streamers who like put stuff out, and then once in a while someone will like align the stars and they'll get that like pop off deck that's like the new #1 like hot thing. Have you done that before? Have you like assembled a deck and then all of a sudden everyone's like, hey, check out this sweet deck, I saw it in this guy's stream, and it like pops off?
Yeah. I wouldn't say I ever had like the super crazy MetaBreaker where there's this whole archetype idea that was just only my idea, and it was created. Yeah. Like I have a friend or a couple friends that have had that experience, but in regards to my decks and the Demon Hunter decks I play, I post like probably 1 or 2 like a month usually. I only post the ones that I find are interesting and different than what other people do. And then a lot of viewers or, players, well, a lot of times they'll reach out to me and be like, yo, I've been playing this. I hit legend for the first time. Thank you. And that always feels great, but yeah, I publish a lot of my decks, and I do about 2 a month. And I try, and that's pretty much my goal. When I'm streaming all the time, is to make a new Demon Hunter deck that's different and is actually good, and then popularize that. That's always what I try to do.
So something people might not know about you is that you casted a Chili Mountain Hearthstone tournament. Have you ever gotten into more casting, or have you considered after that, doing casting here and there? Or how do you feel about that?
I would love casting. That's like probably one of my favorite things to do in regards to gaming and content creation. Yeah, I would totally cast more tournaments, and I would love to do it for even like a bigger audience with Hearthstone. That's an amazing thing, and I'm always really excited about those. Casting just takes a lot of time, and it's like, because whenever you cast, it's like, it's probably going to be as long or longer than a stream. Yeah. So like, I always need to know like pretty far ahead of time and stuff to plan it around my life and everything. But I wish there was when I go to full-time content creation in the future, I'm definitely going to prioritize like the casting endeavors, because I love it.
Could you see yourself like, maybe like a few years in the future, at an event, like a Hearthstone thing behind you, got the headset, you're in front of the crowd?
Oh yeah, that would be great. I hope that we go back to live esport events. That would be amazing. And to be a live caster at like a Hearthstone event, Yeah, that would be the nuts, a dream come true.
That'd be cool.
Absolutely.
And I feel like the skills from like casting Hearthstone every day or streaming Hearthstone every day to being a caster, it's kind of like not too far, like not a crazy stretch. You're probably mostly there.
Yeah, you just have to subconsciously distance yourself from taking the side of the person who's on the bottom of the screen, because that's what everyone does.
Really?
Yeah, actually, you should, as a person who hosts tournaments, you should definitely think about that when you're watching your Hearthstone casters. Like a lot of times, because the other cards are upside down, or they're not looking at them, or they're looking at the bottom player's perspective the entire time, the casters tend to lean towards the bottom player's perspective.
Wow.
Always.
That makes
unless
sense,
they're really
too.
good at it. You know,
Like it's just like a little bias that's always like you gotta kind of like prevent yourself from going with.
right. Like they'll say like, okay, this player has the ability to do this, this, and that, and this and that. And they'll always be thinking about the bottom player's options instead of the top player's options, because you have to reprogram yourself to think about what that person can do the whole time too. So, yeah, it's weird.
That's interesting. Like a little human brain trick there.
Yeah. Casting Hearthstone. Think about the top player too. He's just as important.
So you mostly do content on Twitch these days and then your podcast. Do you feel like something in your personality drew you to be a creator on Twitch rather than, other platforms, Instagram, or maybe primarily YouTube videos or different platforms like that?
Well, I've actually been prioritizing YouTube a whole bunch in the last couple months, and my YouTube has been growing pretty well, and I'm pretty excited about that. And Twitter was always my original content that I did from music that carried over. So the Twitter following didn't actually disown me when I pivoted to gaming. So, but Twitch is obviously the main one I use, so it's like Twitch is priority 1, and then YouTube is priority 2, and then Twitter is kind of in the backbone to the whole thing. Like, yeah. I'm very much blessed to have my 10,000 Twitter followers from music that followed me into gaming. Thank you. Thank you if you were one of them. I appreciate you for not unfollowing me.
Okay, and that's a fantastic note to take us out on. Draco, thanks so much for joining us. It was really awesome having you and learning about your Hearthstone journey, your music journey. This is really cool.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It was really fun to talk to you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Could you tell everybody like where they can find you, what they should follow, where they can get their Hearthstone tips?
Absolutely. If you Google DracoCatt, you will find my Twitch. The first thing, there are 2 T's in DracoCatt, DracoCatt. That's how you spell it. If you Google the name, you'll find everything. YouTube/DracoCatt, Twitch/DracoCatt, Twitter/DracoCatt. It's all the same name. It's everywhere. So
awesome.
Good stuff. Yeah. And Cabaret Runway is hard to spell, but if you try and spell it, Google will correct you. And you can find all the music there. It's on Spotify, iTunes, whatever people use for music. It's there.
Sidkitten, where can people find you?
Hey guys, you can find me at It's Me Sidkitten on all social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. On Twitch, I'm twitch.tv/Sidkitten.
Awesome. And then I'm Chillrogg. You can find me Chillrogg, ChillRoggG. YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. That's the main places I'm active, those 3. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. See you guys next week, the same time. You can also find this podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere where there are podcasts. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.